Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports here. You're joined by myself and Reece, of course, and Kyle is one of the fans as well, joining us here today, a Ferrari fan through and through. And we're going to be chatting about the Dutch Grand Prix that just took place over the weekend. So, of course, just to very quickly go over it again, Max Verstappen winning once again, but Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly finding themselves on the podium alongside the Dutchman at his home Grand Prix. Sergio Perez just missed out on that due to that 5-second penalty he had for speeding in the pit lane, which is a bit of a shock there. Carlos Sainz in 5th, Lewis Hamilton 6th, Lando Norris 7th, Alex Albon in 8th, Oscar Piastri 9th, and Esteban Ocon in 10th. So immediately, let's just chat about, I think, the dominance that is Max Verstappen. I mean, Kyle, I've heard from Reece already. So, Kyle, I'm going to go straight to you with regards to the dominance that Max Verstappen is showing. I mean, yesterday's race, what do you make of his performance there?
I mean, what a machine. He tends to not make mistakes and do so at an incredible pace while making sure that tires are never an issue. It's just, I don't know if it's too early in his career to say, but I don't remember any driver being as good at everything at the same time at such a young age. We're definitely witnessing greatness in front of our eyes, and someone who may go down as the greatest of all time. Of course, there's a ways to go. You've got to get the legacy behind you that the likes of Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton and anyone else that is involved in that GOAT discussion, but at any given one point in time, I'm not sure I remember a driver as dominant as this.
Well, it's exactly that. I think it's the fact that he's got an equaled Sebastian Vettel's consecutive win record now over the weekend. And nobody's really doubting that he could go on to win every single other race this season. And I think, that in itself speaks to the dominance of him in the car. But Reece, you were telling me quite interestingly about a curse that seems to have appeared here in Monza this weekend, which is now, of course, coming up. Now, Max Verstappen's just equaled that record. So, based off that curse, will he actually continue the win streak? Because I want you to go over this for everybody.
It's certainly going to be difficult for him because, of course, there is that Monza curse. I don't know if you're aware of this, Kyle, the Monza curse that has been going on for the past 3 years.
Tell me about it. The Monza curse to me as a Ferrari fan means we just can't win our home race. That's the curse for me.
Well, the last time Ferrari won was in 2019 with Charles Leclerc, and that is when the curse started, nonetheless. So 2019, Charles Leclerc won the race in Monza, of course, quite historically there for the Tifosi. 2020, though, the next outing for the Monegasque in Monza, what happened to him? He DNF'd. So Pierre Gasly was the winner that season. Next season after that, he also DNF'd in Monza. Daniel Ricciardo went to win in 2021. 2022, he also DNF'd. Max Verstappen won in 2022. So what is going to happen to him this year? Could the Monaco curse bring an end to his dominance? Or, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. That's what I meant, by the way. Not obviously... the Monaco, I meant the Charles home thing, but goodness me, let's just hope that the boy gets something good for his confidence. My heart breaks for him every week. It's hard to take.
This week was unfortunately like no other for a Ferrari fan because, Charles Leclerc DNF'd on, I think it was lap 17 of 72 yesterday.
Floor damage.
41, 43, around about there, actually.
Or was it? It was actually longer than I expected.
Yeah, so he was out there for
He should have been pulled in earlier, to be honest. The race looked done for him around, just maybe it was around 17 mark, I don't know, but for some reason,
I think it was when Liam Lawson decided to overtake. Liam Lawson took Charles Leclerc, and I thought, that's your first major overtake in your Formula One career. And I just had a laugh. I was like, the Ferrari's being overtaken by a rookie driver in a shocking car. And
in an AlphaTauri.
Retire that thing right then and there.
It's been very disappointing for the Ferraris. I mean, at least Charles' teammate, Carlos Sainz, had a bit of a better day than yesterday, finishing up in P5. Not necessarily the worst result for Ferrari, but off the back of the summer break, Charles Leclerc is aiming for second in the Constructors' Championship. I do not think that is possible at all anymore.
No. It's gone.
Yes, Kyle.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle, just sum up as a Ferrari fan your thoughts of yesterday's Grand Prix. And Carlos Sainz finished in 5th. Was that all right?
Yeah, I think he fought well for it, to be fair to him. Showed a lot of heart, showed a lot of defensive acumen, really, especially at the end under pressure. I think Ferrari seems to struggle in bad weather. The car doesn't seem to get temperature in the tires like the others. So perhaps that was a big factor affecting the pace of Carlos Sainz up front. So considering I think he did a good job, I think it was a good recovery where he could have been 2 or 3 places lower. I think that would have been a disaster. The DNF for Charles, I think that's an unlucky one. A slight collision with Oscar and some floor damage somehow resulted from it. And yeah, that sort of ruined the race. I don't think Ferrari were great tactically before anyway. I mean, we saw that absolute dog's breakfast of a pit stop.
To be fair, for once I'm actually going to defend Ferrari there for that pit stop, because it wasn't 100% their fault. We saw Red Bull as well quite slow on their pit stop for Sergio Perez there on the first lap. And it was because the drivers decided to come in at the absolute last second. And that's why, unfortunately, they weren't ready. Let's say that Red Bull were ready with those tires, then I would be a bit more critical of Ferrari. But it was a very, very late call. And yeah, it was still the right decision from Charles Leclerc to come into the pits then.
Yeah, I found it interesting that Alfa Romeo were ready, though.
Yeah, but
yes, they might have just called it a bit earlier.
I just wanted to go to it and say, we knew that the weather system was coming. We knew that was around the corner and that was going to be very, very soon as we started the race. So surely all of the pit crews would have been ready with those intermediate tires just to get them straight onto the cars, knowing that that's going to be a potential thing. So the fact that they were so slow, to me, it's not an excuse that Charles Leclerc came in last minute. They should be waiting. They're knowing that message is coming in the first 4 or 5 laps. They know that's going to be, right, I'm coming in. They need to be ready, surely. I mean, not just a Ferrari, for all of the other teams as well. I mean, it shouldn't have been that slow.
Yeah, I think it's the lack of proactive thinking that annoys Ferrari fans most right now. It's not that the reaction was slow. It's just surely you'd be prepared. And even when they were slow, Reece mentioned when Red Bull were slow with Checo in a similar instance, they still ended up doing it 6.5 seconds quicker, even when they were unprepared. So even when you have a look at the same situation in 2 teams, the same thing happening, then Ferrari are still worse at that by quite a margin, which was a stat that ruined my day watching that.
The thing that I found a bit unforgivable from their pit stop, though, was the fact that they didn't change Charles Leclerc's front wing. So, I mean, sure, that they didn't have the tires ready, but I mean, they had the car up on the jacks. They'd taken all the tires off. I remember, I think it was Matty from P1 podcast just saying it looked like it was a Formula One game glitch, the fact that his car was up and there was like just no tires there. But I mean, the least they could have done with that wasted time was change the wing, which takes a lot of time in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I agree. Yeah. And so, I think they brought him in second as well later on, which I couldn't believe. They brought Carlos in first, and I thought, there's a man with a damaged wing. He should be the priority to bring in before he loses more lap time. Just strange decisions again in strategy. I guess we're not surprised by that, are we?
No, I don't think at this stage we're very surprised by Ferrari doing anything weird.
But let's also talk about now. We talk about Charles Leclerc also DNF'd, of course, in yesterday's race. Now we had 2 other DNFs there. Logan Sargent for Williams. Now we found out later on that it wasn't his fault. They had a hydraulics issue, but he was still at the back of the grid at the time that he went out. Now is surely his Formula One career in the balance?
I'll let Kyle take that because I've given my opinions this morning on that, and I'll give it a little bit more after your opinion.
Sorry, Mark, just hit me with that again. My signal just cut out at the wrong time.
No problem. Logan Sargent, he obviously DNF'd yesterday. It wasn't his fault, but he was sitting in 20th already at that point and then DNF. Now, is his career looking like it's going to be over? I mean, he was so dejected when he got out of that car. He was in tears, you could basically see, and the entire Grand Prix just could barely show any more emotion that was anything but sad and upset and things like that. I mean, do you think that maybe his career is very much in the balance?
I think he feels that way. And I think that's a big factor. We saw his reaction and my heart broke for him. I really felt for him because there really wasn't much that he could have done there. I don't know if there's been any reports that come through of exactly what happened. I know he mentioned that something about the right wheel and it just wouldn't turn. And so, I don't know if Williams has come in with any info on that, but I felt for him, and I think
they have.
Oh, they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
It was a
So
hydraulics
the reason
issue.
for it was a hydraulics failure,
hydraulics.
which meant he had
Okay.
no steering, as well as it was a brake bar wire failure, so he had no brakes. So it was really not his
geez.
fault at all. So
Shame.
he was
man.
looking quite dejected, and I think the reason he was looking so dejected, he thought it was his fault, and only really got told that it was a hydraulics failure once he got back into the pits. And that was
Okay,
after
well,
50 laps
hopefully-
because there's no service roads.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, hopefully that means that he's feeling a bit better about the situation. Yeah. It certainly looked like he thought this puts his career in trouble, and I think confidence is such an important thing for a Formula One driver to be able to get performance out of a car and race on the edge of its capabilities. That if you've lost that confidence and you're feeling down and out, you're generally not going to perform. And I think that's the factor that might put his career in more danger other than the incident itself.
And then, of course, Guan Yu Zhou was our last DNF of the day. I mean, George Russell almost joined him, but Guan Yu Zhou did unfortunately smash into the barriers there in turn one, which caused our first red flag in ages. And that was due to that serious weather storm that came in right near the end of the race. We had 7 laps remaining, of course, when we got that red flag shown. Now, I mean, it's not Zhou Guanyu's fault. I think it could have happened to anybody there. He just obviously skidded across. The tires were not the ones, and he went off into the barriers there. But so many people went into the barriers, of course, afterwards, including the likes of Sergio Perez, which resulted in a lost position to Fernando Alonso. And then coming back into the pits, he also sped in the pit lane. So, I mean, talk about like doing so well, Perez, to get right up to second place and then throwing it all away right at the end there.
Yeah, that was crazy. Hey, what a crazy time. That weather was insane. I think absolute correct decision to red flag it. But were we seeing a bit of panic from Checo there? Or I don't know how much was his call or his particular strategist call coming into the pits at that time as well. Yeah, and the speeding in the pit lane, obviously, that's all on him. I remember the commentary mentioning that you have to, slightly readjust your deltas when you're on different tires coming in, with the pit limiter. Maybe that was the error. But I agree with you, Mark. He did everything right to get back up to a podium spot and then ended up losing it.
The error that he had actually that caused him to speed in the pit lane was because he locked up and actually hit the wall. So that's why you saw, I don't know if you're watching the live footage, they had to replace his front wing during the red flag conditions. That was because he broke it as he came into the pits there, as well as when he did go off the track into turn one before having to put on those full wets. He actually went into the barriers and damaged his beam wing. So they also had to replace that in the very short red flag session or red flag.
Wow.
Moment.
I actually missed half of that. And then they still ended up being quicker at doing that than Charles Leclerc's first pit stop, which is just crazy. But let's not go back there. I felt for Checo with that penalty, but I mean, you can't speed in the pit lane and get away with it, can you? And it's just another error that's going to mount with his frustration and possibly Red Bull's frustration with him.
Well, Christian Horner certainly seems quite adamant at the moment on keeping Sergio Perez, saying even though he is so far behind Max Verstappen in the points, he's still doing a great job. He is second in the in the Drivers' Championship. And I think Red Bull are certainly happy with the job he's doing out there. Do you think that's justified, or do you think someone else should come into that seat who could possibly get a bit closer to Verstappen?
Yeah, I think someone else should. And look, I like Checo, I do. But when you have a car that is that dominant, you want 1-2s all over the place, don't you? You want to rival the era of Ferrari's dominance when we knew every race was a 1-2. It was Schumi and Barrichello every weekend. I feel like the Red Bull car should be achieving that. And it's just not happening. I mean, how many 1-2s have they had this year? I don't really know. And I think they should be getting in a driver that can, and I feel like there's many drivers that can bring that element of consistency. We know Checo on his day can be brilliant, but he seems to always have an error in him. I don't think that's the quality of a second driver. The second driver should be there for consistency, right?
Yes, I agree. A second driver should be there for consistency, and they should be able to match the number one driver pretty much in all races. We saw in the past how Valtteri Bottas was able to get so close to Lewis Hamilton races. Of course, sometimes Hamilton wouldn't run away, but the majority of the races he was right there with him. And we're not seeing that with Sergio Perez. And maybe it's because he's getting on a little bit in age. I don't necessarily want to put it down to that because he is such a phenomenal driver, even at his age in Formula One. But maybe we should get someone else younger in there. But speaking about the seat, Helmut Marko has said this week that Alex Albon is not in the running anymore for that seat because he's had his chance with Red Bull already. I think that's a little bit harsh because he is really performing so much better at the moment. I think they're really missing out.
Yeah, I also think, when you talk about, Alex Albon, I mean, he's doing unbelievable things in a really underpowered car. I mean, he's right up there in 8th position. He started in 4th, obviously, after qualifying there. Had many overtakes during the race. He was done a bit by the, of course, weather system and the strategy calls that Williams made. But nonetheless, still finished on the points there, just behind McLaren's Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton, of course, in 6th for Mercedes. He still finished ahead of McLaren's Oscar Piastri, though. So, I mean, he's doing unbelievable things in that Williams. So now, if Red Bull and Helmut Marko goes and says, no, we're not going to let him come back because he's had his chance, stupid decision, I think. I think it's a really stupid thing not to look at him. But then surely does the likes of Ferrari not look at him in terms of when Sainz should go off to Audi, if that's of course, the big rumor. So surely Ferrari would say, that's a driver we can back.
To be honest, I think there's also a little bit of a debate over who's in charge at Red Bull right now, because Helmut Marko says one thing, and then Christian Horner says another thing. Helmut Marko says that Sergio Perez, his seat isn't safe, and Christian Horner goes and says the exact opposite and says it is safe. So we don't really know what is going on there in the leadership roles of Red Bull. Maybe there is a little bit of turmoil and a bit of infighting there between management. But yeah, I think certainly if Red Bull are not going to look at him, then Ferrari or Mercedes or maybe Alpine, Audi, whoever, that he's a brilliant driver. He should not be overlooked. And I think Red Bull have really missed an opportunity if they're not considering him for that second seat.
All right, Carl, would you want Albon in that Ferrari seat if Sainz did leave?
No, I wouldn't. And that's no disrespect to him. And we've touched on it on previous shows. Ferrari needs strong characters in the drivers department to work with a team that seems to be unsure of themselves. They need a strong
to push development,
personality.
For sure.
Exactly. And I just don't think Alex is that personality, albeit I do believe he deserves a better car. And I hope he gets that. I wish him all the best in becoming a driver that can be in a team that's consistently in the points. I just don't think that place is in Ferrari if Ferrari are going to do better.
So I assume you're looking for Hamilton, who of course finished 6th yesterday after starting in 13th. Not a bad race for him, and he almost took Sainz right at the end there, tried desperately to get past the Ferrari there. So Hamilton would of course be a much better bet, I assume, for you. I know you have said so in previous things that's somebody that you'd like to have there. But now let's talk about Lewis Hamilton and of course his teammate George Russell in those Mercedes yesterday. George Russell started all the way up right near the top of the grid, and only finished down in 17th and was complaining and moaning during the race as well about what on earth happened to the race. We were on track for a podium position. And then...
No, it wasn't on track. He said he was forecast for a podium because apparently you can forecast those things nowadays.
Yeah.
He is a weatherman. He is the weatherman, to be fair. So he does forecast.
No, he's the precipitation man or the sweat man.
Oh, man.
Oh, George Russell.
I did have a good chuckle at that.
Yeah, I don't know what he was on there yesterday saying, no, I was forecast for a podium finish. It's raining. It's Zandvoort. Nothing is guaranteed. Ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't believe the entitlement in that message to his team. I just thought, what do you mean? Like, is any race a given? What do you...
Yeah, imagine being Toto Wolff hearing that comment there and said, "What on earth happened, guys? I mean, I was forecast for a podium," and being like, "Huh? like like, who are you? A, who are you? And B, you're the second driver in Mercedes trying to get Hamilton up there, who's starting in 13th. Like, I mean, at what point was it like an easy given that, oh no, 3 laps into the race? I don't think it was like 4 laps or 5 laps into the race. He went and said that message. We still got another 60 plus laps remaining in the race. And Russell goes and says, oh, it's forecast for a podium. I was like, mate, you still got another 60 laps to go. Could you like get going here, please? I mean,
to be fair, the Mercedes didn't get that strategy call all that perfectly yesterday. It was very difficult to make that call, whether to bring them in on lap 2, whether to bring them in straight away, or Mercedes, they left them in until lap 3, which was really the absolute worst time to leave them out until, because then the other intermediate runners have already come in for a new set of tires and are lapping so much faster than you, and you're going to lose so much time in that pit. But unfortunately, they had to, because they expected that the rain was going to be light and only for a few minutes, and it definitely wasn't.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well, which we're talking about engineers and racing drivers having a little bit of a thing with each other. George Russell not very chuffed with his Mercedes team. We do have to touch on Esteban Ocon and his long conversation he had with his engineer during that red flag, when he went in question and says, what the hell am I doing on the wets, guys? Why am I not in the intermediate tires? You guys have ruined my race, type of thing. And then obviously everybody went back into the pits because it was definitely wet conditions, not intermediate tire conditions. So they had made the right call. And the red flag was then course, and he came back into the pits to go and have that chat and went at it with his engineer for ages, and they were properly having a go at each other. I mean, should that not have been like just reserved for after the race if they really wanted to have chats about it? I mean, who on earth, first off, I know Reece's thoughts, but Kyle, who do you think was in the wrong there? And your thoughts in that entire instance?
Oh, it was Ocon in the wrong. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it live. I just remember shouting at the TV, my boy, you owe them a whole round at least. The whole team, you're taking them out, you owe them a round. My goodness me, how would you doubt them with all the numbers and work they're doing when you're in the middle of a storm? Like, come on, man, come on.
And they were the only
it was
team
quite
to put...
clear that a red flag was coming.
They were the only team to put him on a set of wets when everyone else was on a set of inters. All of the inter runners were literally sliding off the track, and he has the nerve to scream at his engineer that they put on a full wet. I mean, and the worst, I was really hosing myself laughing because it was absolutely absurd.
And the worst part about it is also the fact that, like, if that red flag wasn't called, he would have leapfrogged so many teams.
He would have won.
Gone right up to the top. He probably would have been like up there in the podium positions. It would have been scary how high up he would have been. It was a brilliant call by Alpine. And the only reason I didn't see any reward for it is because they had to come in for that red flag. But then Ocon decides to still lose his mind at him. And even after the race, they were still chatting and having words with each other about certain things. Didn't look nearly as heated. But I mean, I just don't quite understand where Ocon was coming from in that entire instance, as well as I haven't seen Ocon do that before. That was also interesting.
No, and especially when you're... Sorry, Kyle. Carry on.
No, go for it, Reece. Go for it.
I was going to say, especially when you're a driver in the car, and as Kyle said earlier, your team has all the data they need to make these decisions, and they made the right one. And yeah, you need to sometimes just chill out a bit, understand why they made that decision, and then maybe have a bit of a conversation. Don't do it in front of all of the cameras and the crowds where people can see this going on.
Yeah, I mean, are we seeing touches of Force India Ocon coming back, where he was a bit spicy, would fight with people in front of, we had that bit of cheeky side to him. Maybe it's a touch of that, but I mean, there's nothing, I don't think you can defend him at all in this situation. And as you gents have said, he would have been on for a win or a podium, possibly if the red flag didn't come out immediately. If it only came out 2 laps later, he certainly would have been leading the race.
Yeah. It's exactly that. He would have been right up there, and I think only Max Verstappen would have had time to come into the pits and come out on a little pool wets ahead of him. But I mean, I suppose I could only forgive Esteban Ocon if he was in the Ferrari team then having an argument with his engineers, because then I could probably question the decisions made. But yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for Alpine there. They could have done something very good with Ocon's car there, but of course his teammate Pierre Gasly did get on the podium in 3rd position there. I mean, what a race that was, Reece.
Yes, I mean, I don't think Pierre Gasly was really expecting that at all. And He looked so chuffed with himself there on the podium, and I think we're all really happy for him. It's his, I think I'm correct in saying it's his first podium with Alpine, which is phenomenal. Of course, it's a French team. He's a French driver. Great for him. Great for his confidence as well. Hopefully, he'll be able to have a good showing out in Monza, because I think the Alpines are going to be fast at that low downforce circuit. The Ferraris, I think, are going to be fast there as well, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Yeah, I'm really happy for him, and I think it's a good showing for Alpine, who are really struggling at the moment in terms of their managerial issues. So hopefully it does give a bit of a morale boost back at the Alpine factory.
Yeah, I was incredibly impressed with him. I'm a big Gasly fan. I think he's a fantastic driver. I think he's one of the best defensive drivers out there. He's so hard to overtake. We had seen him do so well in a much worse car beforehand, in the AlphaTauri, and defend like a lion there as well. So I was very happy to see him get a result that he deserved. And I see on our poll as well, so far he's winning the fan vote there for who impressed most, and I think that's thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, and whilst we talk about the poll, of course, we've got Alonso and Albon as the other two drivers. Now, we have already touched on Alex Albon and his coming 8th there, but now Fernando Alonso yesterday, how was he doing? I mean, it was incredible. Strategy calls from Aston Martin were on point the entire day for Fernando Alonso. Not so much for Lance Stroll, but definitely for Fernando Alonso. And Alonso also just doing exceptionally well in using his experience in the wet weather, of course. That's where it really does help you. And getting that second place, which is so desperately needed for that Aston Martin team, which we were saying during the break, they need points, they need podiums again to try and solidify their place right near the top of the Constructors' Championship. And Fernando Alonso now also, again, letting everybody know that he's still in the running for that second place position in the Drivers' Championship. I mean, did unbelievably well yesterday, Reece.
Sorry, I'm busy reading articles. What was the question?
Alonso.
Yes, Fernando Alonso had a phenomenal race yesterday. That's all the prompt I need there. Fernando Alonso had a really, really great race yesterday. As you said, Aston Martin made all the correct strategy calls, especially at the end where they decided not to pit him when Sergio Perez did. I think they saw that red flag coming. Maybe Perez couldn't have, he was past him already because Perez just went off the track. And yeah, I think they deserve it. It's going to be interesting to see whether they can keep this momentum going. They kind of fizzled out at the end of the first half of the season. Hopefully they can kind of keep the consistency going throughout the second half, because it is going to be very, very difficult. All of the teams are in a race at the moment to see who can develop their cars the fastest. And I think they may get lost a little bit if they continue to do what they did in the first half of the season. I don't want to see that, because it's great to see Fernando Alonso back on the podium. And he just provides such great racing as well. His teammate, though, on the other hand, not so much.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if we even need to touch on Lance Stroll. Can I give you his finishing position?
11th.
I think that says everything. 11th.
Yes. But Kyle, your thoughts
his
on
teammate was
Alonso
second.
and Aston Martin's calls yesterday and their race in general?
Yeah. Certainly from Alonso's point of view, they got everything right, and he had such a good drive. He showed his caliber once more. Showed his racecraft. Of course, no mistakes from him. We've come to expect that. I'm always so impressed of how he punches above his weight. How he always outdoes his teammate over a season, except that one season with Lewis, which I'm sure still haunts his dreams. But consistently, he's ahead of his teammate by so much. It's incredible. In my opinion, I think there's an argument. Maybe I can spice up some interaction in the comment section. I think Fernando Alonso is the greatest motorsport driver of all time, seeing what he's done in Formula One and outside of Formula One, what he has won in multiple disciplines and the longevity in his career. My opinion is someone has to try and match what that man has done over the same period to be called the greatest motorsport driver of all time.
I think he's still... I don't disagree with you. I think he's a phenomenal racing driver, but he is still chasing that Triple Crown. There are a few drivers who do have that Triple Crown. Once he has that, then I think I will I will gift him, well, not gift him, I will crown him that greatest of all time title, because he is
Fair
still
enough.
chasing that Indy 500 win, which he got so close to a couple of years ago, but was very unfortunate. I think he had a tire blowout, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, as you say, he is just a really, really competitive driver in all forms of motorsport, not just Formula One, which is not that easy. I mean, especially going from Formula One, which is a single-seater open cockpit. He went then into IndyCar, which is similar, but then to go and win a World Endurance Championship, that is a completely different ballpark. I mean, that is long stints in the car, like multiple days, and just completely different handling as well. And he still was able to be extremely competitive.
Yeah, and he seems to be handy on a bicycle these days as well. So if it has wheels, he's going to be on it.
Just don't let him crash again.
Yeah. No, he must calm down a little bit. We need him healthy and behind the wheel.
Yes.
So, I mean, we've chatted now about most of the teams here, but there's one team we've deliberately ignored up until this point here, because I was a bit confused, I think, by yesterday's race, just regards to strategy calls, which they've been getting so right recently, and that, of course, McLaren. Lando Norris last week actually finished up in 7th and 9th, and they did. I mean, look, it's not the worst possible finishing, but quite frankly, given how well they did before the break, going into that break, and how everything was just working for them. The pit stops were excellent. Their strategy calls were excellent. The drivers, both of them performing. The car also performing. Yesterday, though, it was a bit of a shit show.
Yes, it was a bit unfortunate. I think they also just got caught out with the McLarens, with the Mercedes on their strategy call in the first pit phase of the race, which was, of course, lap 1 pretty much. And that is unfortunately when they, just lost the momentum for the rest of the race, and they were fighting back rather than trying to fight for positions. Disappointing, but I think we'll see them fight back in Monza. That circuit should certainly suit their cars as well. They like high speed tracks. I'm really hoping that they're going to be competitive, because it should give us a really exciting race weekend again. But yeah, we'll have to see what they're able to do throughout the rest of the second half of the season.
Yeah, they gave us some PTSD there, didn't they? Some memories of Sochi a while ago when they got on the radio and asked Lando if he can manage staying out. We all thought, no, not again, please no. So other than that PTSD that they caused us, I was generally surprised that they seemed to not learn from the pain of Sochi, that fateful day, where if you've got the data, tell the driver. Don't give him the option there, especially when you know the rain is only getting heavier. And especially the driver only knows what he's feeling at that moment on the track. We all know these tracks span kilometers. The heavy rain might be 2 kilometers away from them. And so, if they at that moment think they're in control enough of the car, they're going to say yes. But if you've got the data, bring them in, man. Bring them in. Don't assume that they can handle heavier weather when you know that's on the radar and it's arriving now.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yes,
that.
I completely agree.
I mean, I was very much confused by McLaren's delayed response to the whole thing, because they've been so proactive before going to the break, making decisions right then and there with Red Bull and the likes. And also, I mean, in qualifying, Lando Norris was getting so close, and in practice, of course, I mean, the McLarens and the Red Bull times were right on par, right next to each other the whole time, and only just right at the end of qualifying did they just mess up a little bit. And that wasn't the pace being shown. That was just, I think, too early. They did their lap a little bit. But in general, their race pace and their qualifying pace was not that dissimilar to those Red Bulls. And yet, when it came to yesterday, they just really made some shocking calls with regards to those the tactics. And then also, again, I think just the McLarens and the wet weren't nearly as quick, of course, as the Red Bulls. But I was expecting a lot more. I'm sure we will see a lot more come Monza. And just based on the pace, though, leading up to the race, not the race itself, do we think that McLaren could genuinely compete with Red Bull this weekend?
I think it's a bit of a long shot to say that they're going to be able to take the win, but maybe they'll be able to be faster than Sergio Perez. He might make a mistake and allow one of the McLarens to slip through, maybe Lando Norris. Yeah, we'll see. I think they're going to be quite fast. I think the circuit is really going to benefit them, suit them. We've seen how it has suited their car in the past with Daniel Ricciardo. I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm hoping Oscar Piastri can have a little bit of a better race. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting.
Kyle?
Maybe the Monza curse comes in to help Piastri. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe
We've
he
seen
can
some
get this
things.
race before Lando
Imagine
Norris.
Piastri wins before Lando Norris, and that would be
That would
unbelievable.
be
Oh, that would be.
That would really get under
we've
Lando's
come to-
skin.
That
would
would,
be
but
just
we
imagine.
know mayhem's possible. Yeah.
Exactly. It's Formula One. Anything is possible.
So what I'm going to see is I'm going to see Max Verstappen qualify quickest in Monza. We're going to see Lando Norris in second and Oscar Piastri in third. Into the first turn, Lando Norris is going to take out Max Verstappen, both of them out the race, and Oscar Piastri goes on to win in Monza. I think it's got history written right then in the stars. We're going to see the Australian get a win before
that's a rookie
Lando
win.
Norris.
So yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a long shot. Max Verstappen is so cautious. I was actually chatting to Mark about this a little bit earlier. Max Verstappen he's changed his driving style slightly. He's a lot more cautious on lap one. He's more willing to give up positions in the first lap of a race to be neat and tidy and not have any incidents. And then he can just reel in those places a little bit later because his car has the pace. It's smarter driving for sure. And that's why I think we haven't seen any incidents with Verstappen this season.
Yeah, I agree with Reece there. If something crazy is going to happen, it's going to be because of something that's not Max's fault. Maybe a puncture.
Never know.
Yeah, I don't think Red Bull is going to see some major things. I mean, their car has been very resilient in most scenarios during the course of the season so far. So it's going to take a hell of a lot for Max Verstappen not to win this weekend. But of course, anything is possible. And also, the weather has been playing a big part in every single race pretty much for this entire season. And I don't think it's going to be any different here in Monza because, of course, it is still European weather at the moment, which is all over the place. So I'm sure we're going to have some more rain here in Monza. It's going to throw the weekend into a little bit of chaos. And the likes of Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, of course, also benefit a lot when it's rainy weather. They're exceptional in the wet alongside Max Verstappen. That's why we saw Lewis Hamilton make up all those places yesterday. And I think going into this weekend, I think we will probably have a three-way battle for those podiums, at least between constructors, because I do reckon you'll see the likes of Red Bull, Mercedes, and Aston Martin vying out those positions. I don't know. I mean, obviously, McLaren will also be there. So it's four-way battle. So I don't know how I somehow skipped McLaren, but Aston Martin just with a slight bit of a shout, I think. But it's getting a lot closer after that first place position with Max Verstappen. It's getting, lots of different names in second and third place we've seen so far. And just going to end off more or less, just to start going into the final bits of this fan forum, I suppose. We're going to say, who do we think, if Max Verstappen doesn't win this weekend, what's our top three? What's our top three? Out of absolutely no concept of knowledge of what's going to happen this weekend, just basing off what could happen. Reece, I'm going to go to you first. Who's your top three if Max Verstappen doesn't win?
If Max Verstappen doesn't win, I'm going to say Fernando Alonso, Lando Norris, and Lewis Hamilton.
Okay. Kyle, have you got reasons and otherwise not for whatever you predict?
Yeah, no, look, Reece took the words right out of my mouth. So I guess I'll at least go with one different there. And I'm going to put Checo in the place of Hamilton, just to be different. But I agree with Reece.
But it's interesting because we're not just giving those predictions. I was also going to put Alonso in those top three, but I wasn't going to put him first, which both of you did. So are you guys saying that you reckon that Aston Martin has found enough pace to be quicker than McLaren again?
I mean, they were super fast in Saudi Arabia. You can't forget that, Mark. And that is a super, super fast circuit. So it's possible. I think it's possible at Monza.
Yeah. I guess we'll also see weather dependent, if it's very
precisely
hot.
Yeah, it's exactly it. Now, I suppose just rounding off the show here, of course, yesterday's Grand Prix. Where would you rank that out of all the Grand Prix we've had so far this season?
I'd give it it's one of the better ones. I believe it was exciting with all the weather changes, strategy calls, overtakes, like Reece was saying before we started the stream, the record for overtakes in a Formula One race, I believe, Reece. So I'd
Yes,
say
I'll
it's
give you the stat
8 out
now.
of 10,
It's
you know.
100. Yeah, so that stat for this race weekend is a new record for Formula One. It's the most overtakes ever in a Grand Prix, and that is with 186 overtakes throughout that entire race, which is absolutely incredible. Fernando Alonso performed the most overtakes with 13, going to himself. 59 of them were only broadcast live, and yeah, it was certainly a very good race, with the previous record being held by the Chinese Grand Prix in 2016 with 170 overtakes.
Speaking of the camera not being on overtakes, and sorry to interrupt the narrative, your Mark, but guys, we all know Max is going to win at the end, right? Was I the only one shouting at the TV wanting to see if Lando was going to pinch that position
I was
there?
also.
I mean, and it came down to fractions of a second, man. Another 10 meters, he would have snuck up that place. We weren't sure if Carlos was hanging on. And then they just switched to Max doing a victory lap, man. Goodness me.
It is so frustrating.
It's a habit thing. It's a habit thing that they do, and I've lost it with the directors recently, because it's as soon as it gets to like the last 3 corners, it goes, okay, Max Verstappen's now got about across the finish line. Yeah, we know. We've still got action happening.
The problem is, of course, you have to show the race winner winning the race. You can't not show that. But at the same time, we want to see the on-track action. Put Max Verstappen's race win in a mini screen somewhere. But let us see the actual action happening on track.
Look at our TV right now. We've got 3 different angles happening. Go and just make it into a. Exactly. Here's the top left. Here's Max Verstappen going. Here's Sainz having a battle out. Here's Lando Norris having a battle out. Let's see the whole thing happening there. So I mean, it's just, I don't understand why we don't have those sort of camera angles available to us, because we sometimes, I mean, we did almost miss. I think it was I'm trying to remember which Grand Prix it was, but where we literally had right down to the finish line, and we only saw it as a replay. I think it was between Alex Albon in 10th and 11th was for that last points position somewhere. I think it might have even been in. Just trying to remember now. It's one of the.
I can't remember, unfortunately.
I can't remember, but it was. I think it was an early European circuit at the time, and it was just right down to the wire. And we only see a replay of it, and you're thinking that's some serious action you want to see right at the end of the race, and we just don't see it half the time because we're going, oh look, Max Verstappen's winning a Grand Prix yet again. Look at all our fireworks, guys. I don't care about the fireworks. I don't care about the whole light shows happening. Show me the action.
Absolutely. I think there was an instance last season or the season before as well where Valtteri Bottas gained a position right on the line out of the last corner, got a better exit and stole a position literally on the finish line as well, which we didn't see. And they even got it wrong at Monaco, guys. Like when an overtake happens at Monaco, you gotta show it. We don't usually see those, do we?
Just on a side note, there, Carl, it was Monaco that was right down to the line. That it was Monaco. So that's why.
Was that the one where they were showing Lance Stroll instead of the on-track action? I think it was. Yes. Which was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, really, save us that, please.
So, yeah, I mean, I think we've all got the same opinions on the F1 directors. But, guys, I think we're going to wrap up now this fan forum here. So, thank you very much for joining us, of course, on Forever Motorsports here with Reece, Kyle, and myself, Mark, of course. We're looking forward to seeing what happens this weekend in Monza. And, of course, we've already given a little bit of predictions as to what could happen this weekend. So let us know in the chat, and otherwise in our Discord, of course. You can go join our Discord, link in the chat there, about what you guys think is going to happen this weekend. And, of course, join Reece for all his live shows every day, as well as all the content that's going up on the channel. We have hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much for that, as we get the channel growing very, very quickly. Keep sharing with your friends and otherwise. And from me and the rest of us here on Forever Motorsports, I wish you a good evening, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Cheerio.